Hey everybody, it's the Herminator here. In this packet here in the first part, again, you'll pause the video at various points and work some problems on your own. You're going to be finding the area and the circumference of a circle. Remember, the area is the space that's inside the circle. Circumference is the distance around. Now, you're going to find them at the same time, and it's pretty easy to do if you follow my lead here. First off, you have to know the radius, and if it's from the middle to the end, your radius is 7. Okay, so don't forget that. Now, here's what we do. We write our circumference formula, and that's 2 times pi times r. And then the area, you're going to write the same thing, 2 times pi times r, but you're going to cross out that 2 and bring your 2 around here to your radius to the second power. Okay, remember the area's got the 2 as a power. Circumference just has 2 as a factor multiplied. And your r is 7. So you're able to find the area of that circle right away. Okay, so I cross out the r's and just put 7. So now what I do is I take pi, the pi button's right here, times 7, and then I hit the caret key 2. Power 2, 153.93. And then the circumference would be the distance if I measured around with a tape measure would be 2 times pi times 7. No caret. Okay, 43.98. Okay, and there we go. Okay, now on the next one, again, we have to know our radius, but that's not the radius, okay? What we need to do with our radius, because that's the diameter that's showing, I need to divide by 2, because basically it's halfway. To find what it is halfway, you divide by 2. So 20 divided by 2 is 10, half of 20. Okay, and then I set up my formulas. So 2 times pi times r is the circumference, and then for the area I start with this, but it can't be the same thing, so the 2 comes here as a power. Okay, and my radius is 10, so I cross out those r's and just put 10s where they're at. And then I can find them. So on this one I take pi times 10 to the power of 2. Okay, 314.15. And that is your area. That's the number of square units on the inside. Okay, and here I take 2 times pi times 10. 62.83. Okay, area circumference. Okay, the next one, the radius, that's not your radius showing right there. You need to divide that in half by 2, and your radius is 6. Okay, if it's all the way across, divide it by 2, that's your radius. And the circumference is 2 times pi times r. And the area is 2 times pi times r, but then I cross out the 2 and put that over there as a power. Okay? And scribble that out. Okay, so we know our r is 6. So 6 and 6. So the first thing I have is pi, and then times 6. That's what the dot means, to the power of 2. Okay, 113.09 is the area. Okay, and then here you have 2 times pi times 6. 37.69. Okay, and that's if you measured the outside with a tape measure. Okay, now here it's just from the center, so I don't need to divide that by 2. My r is equal to 8. Okay. So if it's from the center to the end, you don't divide it by 2. That is your r right there. So again, my circumference is 2 times pi times r. And then for area, I'll write the same thing, but I'll just bring that 2 around so that it's to the second power. Okay, power 2. Okay, so and then the r is, the radius is 8, because if it's, yep, so r is 8 and r is 8. So I take my calculator. Pi is right here, times 8 to the power of 2. Okay, that's 201.06. And then the circumference is 2 times pi times 8. 50.26. Okay. Okay, now pause the video and work the 4 problems. Okay, and then rejoin me. Okay, now these problems here, now you should have done those area circumference ones before you move on to this. Okay, an item costs $500. It's marked 30% off. What's the new price? So again, we have $500, and marking it off means I subtract. And to find what I subtract, there's only 1%. I need to find what 30% of 500 would be. Okay. Once again, of means times. Okay. So I divide my 30 by 100. I always need that percent made into a decimal. So 30 divided by 100 is 0.3. And now I'm times 0.3 by 500. That's 150. So I subtract, and that gives me my answer. That gives me the new cost. 500 minus 150, 350. Okay, I weigh 210 pounds. I want to cut my weight by 10%. That means 10% subtracted. But I don't know how many pounds because it's 10%. I got to find what 10% of 210 is. Okay, so again, of means times, but first I have to divide the percent by 100. When you're finding a percent of a number, you got to divide your percent by 100, 0.1, and then times by 0.1 by 210. And that's 21. So I'm going to lose 21 pounds. So to figure out what my weight's going to be then, I take 210 minus 21. And I'm going to weigh 189 pounds. Okay, a town has 4,000 people. The next year it's 15% less than that. What's the population? So I have 4,000 people. And again, less means subtract. But I don't know how many people to subtract. So I have to find, you can't do 15, it's a percent. So I got to find 15% of 4,000. So I divide that by 100. And that's 0.15. And that will find the number of people. So 0.15 times 4,000 is 600. So I had 4,000 people, but then it goes down, and the amount it went down by is 600. So then I subtract. That's 3,400. Okay, pause the video, do the 2 on your own back here, okay? Okay, now the next part is pretty easy, it just looks goofy, okay? If x equals 3 and y equals 5, by how much does the value of 3x2, the x is the letter x, it doesn't mean multiplication, so 3x2, the only operation I see is a minus 2y. By how much does that exceed the value of 2x2 minus 3y? Now, exceed means what you're going to do is subtract these two values. But first you need to replace some variables. Well, first off, the operation between 3 and x is times. X and 2 is times, so I'm putting dots. Then I have a minus operation, and then times. Okay. Then 2 and x would be times, x and 2 would be times, 3 and y would be times. Now I just replace those letters with what they equal. So 3, and then x is 3, times 2, minus 2, and then y is 5. Then I go over here, 2, x needs to be 3, times 2, minus 3, and our y needs to be 5. Okay, then I just go on a calculator and plug it all in. So I go 3 times 3 times 2 minus 2 times 5. You don't need to really think about it. I got 8, so this is equal to 8. then I go 2 times 3 times 2 minus 3 times 5, and I got negative 3. Now to find the difference, to find how much one exceeds the other, that means subtract, okay? So you take 8 minus negative 3, and that's 11. So it exceeds by 11. Because if you think of a number line, if you're at positive 8 and you're at negative 3, that's 11 digits between the two, okay? 11 places. Okay, next one, 4 times x times 5 minus 5 times x, and then 2 times x times 4 minus 3 times y. Okay, if I don't see the operator, it means multiply. So 4, and then x is 5 times 5 minus 5, and then x would be 5. It's a lot of 5s there. And then 2 times x. X is 5, and then 4 minus 3, and then y equals 7. So now I use a calculator. 4 times 5 minus 5 times 5, and that's 75, minus 2 times 5 times 4 minus 3 times 7. All at one time. And then I take 75 minus 19 to find. That's 56. So it exceeds it by 56. Okay, remember that x doesn't mean times, it means a letter. Okay, the times are the dots I put. Minus 5 times y, and then 4 times x, x times 5, and then the minus is there, so I don't put the dot there because there's a minus sign occupying that. 2 times y. So I have 6. X should be 6 times 3 minus 5 times, and instead of y, you put 8. Okay, 4. Instead of x, I put 6 times 5 minus 2. Instead of y, I'm going to put 8. Okay, so I take 6 times 3 minus 5 times 8. And that's 68. Meanwhile, over here, I take 4 times 6 times 5 minus 2 times 8. And I got 104. Now, you are going to subtract these, okay? And you're going to subtract them like that. So 68 minus 104 is negative 36. Because the first number is smaller, and when I subtract a bigger from a smaller, I get a negative. Okay, pause the video and do the 2 on the back. Now these, I'm going to do the 2 here, and then I'm going to do 1 on the back, and you'll do the last 2. Now it says factor the expressions. Now you're wondering, what the heck does that mean? Factoring is the GCFT, but the GCF for all these problems is 1, so I'm going to skip the GCF box. Now on a test in the class, you go GCFT, okay? But we just go to the T box. That's what this is called, is factoring. Make a better box than I did. Then go ABC, just GCF I crossed out, okay? And so I do my thing. I take 5 times negative 7, negative 35. That's going to be a minus problem, and I'm trying to get to negative 2 with the minus. So 1 and 35, that's not even close. 2 is a decimal. 3 is a decimal. 4 is a decimal. 5 and 7. Okay, 7 minus 5 is 2. Now, because the 2 is negative, we put a negative there. And when I have a minus and when I have a negative up there, the signs are the opposite. Okay, now again, the A here is 5x to the second. So I make my 4 parentheses. And I put 5x to start both of them. And then the plus 5 and the minus 7. Then we divide. Now, instead of using the GCF calculator, I want you to use the multiplication chart. Now, if you have the same number, if the numbers are the same, you divide by that number. You don't need to use a chart, the GCF calculator, because that's the greatest thing you can divide by is the number itself. So that gives me 1x plus 1, because you divide them by 5. Now look at 5 and 7. They're different numbers. So go find the first 5 that you see. Okay, we're looking from bottom up. You start at the bottom, don't see a 5, don't see a 5, no 5, 5, 5, 5. No, first number time I see 5. 7's not in that row, so it's not 5. No 5 here, no 5 here, no 5 here. Oh, there is a 5 here, and there's a 7 there. 5 and 7. That means their GCF is 1. So divide by 1. And that stays 5x minus 7. Okay, so this is the answer down here. 1x plus 1. You don't F1, F2. Okay, factoring means those are the two parentheses that multiply to that. Okay, and the next one, again, don't worry about the GCF box because the GCF's 1 for all these. And it doesn't fail either. Okay, so I take positive 8 times positive 5. And I got 40. 40 is positive. So this is an add, and with that adding, I'm trying to get to 13, which is positive. Okay. Now, 1 and 40 will not do. Then 40 divided by 2 is 20. Okay, 20 plus 2 won't work. Decimal. 4 and 10, so 10 plus 4 is 14. I have to get 13. 5 and 8, that'll work. Because 8 plus 5 is 13. Okay, now the plus 13 means you got to have plus 8. And we got a positive up there, so the signs have to be the same. So plus 5 and plus 8. Now my a is 8x to the second power. So when I set my parentheses up, I'm going to go 8x plus 8x, and then the plus 5 and the plus 8. Okay, 8 and 5. Now, let's go find where we have an 8, okay? Here's an 8, but I don't see 5 in that row, so I keep looking up, okay? No 8, no 8, no 8. There's an 8, but I don't see 5, okay? There's an 8, but I don't see 5. And there's an 8, and I do see 5, so the GCF is the 1. So I would divide by 1, and that's 8x plus 5. Okay, now if they're the same number, we divide by that number. We don't need anything else. That's 1x plus 1. Okay, so 8x plus 5 times 1x plus 1. Okay, and I'll do one on the back side. Okay, and you can do these two. So again, set up my big table, and then I go A, B, C. So I take 3 times negative 8. That's a negative 24. So since I got a negative, it's a minus, and that minus I'm trying to get to is 2 negative. 124, no. 2 and 12, no. 3, here I'll show you. I don't want to play Rain Man on you. 3 and 8. That wouldn't work. 24 divided by 4, 4 and 6. Now 6 minus 4 I think is 2. So we put a negative on the 6, and that negative means the signs are the opposite. Plus 4 minus 6. Now my a is 3x to the second. So when I'm setting this up, I want to go 3x, 3x, and then plus 4 minus 6. So 3 and 4. Find a row this way that 3 and 4 are both in. Okay, well, here's really the first time I see 3. Okay, I don't see 4 there. I see 4 here, but not 3. Oh, here I see them both, so it's got to be 1. So that won't change. Okay, how about 3 and 6? Well, the first time I see 3 is here, and 6 is there too, 3 and 6. So 3 will be my GCF, so I will divide by 3. That's 1x minus 2. Okay. That's my answer, 3x plus 4 times 1x minus 2. Work your way from the bottom up, okay? And the first row, going from bottom up that you see them both in, that's what you divide by.